Well, what a documentary, what a career. Spielberg might be the best director of all time. That was fucking amazing.
Yeah, it was kind of mid. Here's the thing. Okay. They didn't mention Hook once.
Hook? Who gives a fuck about Hook? He made Jaws, Jurassic Park, E.T.
What, Robin Williams? Dustin Hoffman? Dude, they had Dustin Hoffman interviewed in the doc, and he didn't mention Hook not once.
Because it's a piece of shit.
No, it's not! What are you talking about? They didn't even show a clip of Hook. And Spielberg's directed, 58, 60 films?
You missed the whole point.
No, I don't think I did. You know what? Audience, look at the camera. Watch Hook, alright? If there's one film to watch, it's that one, alright? I do not like this Hook slander. It's bullshit. God damn it.
Welcome back to Real Talk Podcast, episode 89. Damn. I'm your host, Nathan, and I'm joined by the man himself, Matthew Neves, to my left. Woo. And today we're going to be talking about one of the greatest directors of all time, Steven Spielberg.
Hell yeah.
We're going to be discussing his career, his filmography, and our general thoughts on the legendary Steven Spielberg.
He's a director that everyone knows.
Everyone knows. Yeah, the king of the blockbuster, I'd say. I mean,
he basically used that term because I remember like when I was like, I want to be a filmmaker. It's like, what, you gonna be the next Spielberg?
Right.
You're gonna be the next.
That's
like the headline article for like new coming directors now. Is people still use that? He's like, oh, he's gonna be the next Spielberg. He's gonna be the next Kubrick. He's gonna. It's like, damn, like that's how much of a fucking staple Steven Spielberg has made within film.
And not only just made, I mean, continues to make. Like,
yeah.
he's still making great films.
Great films that have made tons of money.
Yes.
It's crazy to think of it that way, but like, I don't think Spielberg has ever made like a complete dud to the point where he hasn't been able to make a film for years.
Yeah, which is hard. It's so hard. I mean, some of the biggest directors in the world have like had their dark times, right?
A lot of directors in his age.
His class, yeah, exactly. You're right.
Like, how many De Palma films have you seen in the past 10 years, right? Yeah. It sucks, but it's true. And I think, not to go too off topic, but Nathan, you told me to watch a specific documentary about Spielberg. So I decided to watch it. And
the HBO Spielberg doc,
yeah. Overall, I enjoyed it. I think it's very much a documentary.
Yeah, it's long as fuck.
It's long, and I understand why. It covers Spielberg's career, which is basically 50 years of his film career.
Yeah, and for guys like you and me, like we eat that shit up. But like, would I recommend that doc to like the casual who likes Jurassic Park and wants to watch a documentary about Spielberg? No, it's too long.
It's too long.
It's too long. But for a guy like me to sit there and just watch like, you know, his mindset going into some of his most iconic movies and to hear stories about the productions of all of them and where he was in his career is very cool.
Yeah. Could have been cut down a bit, but the things I do enjoy that they do cover is his personal life and how it reflected within his films.
Yes.
His family life wasn't great, wasn't amazing, and he wanted to showcase that in the films, being like, yeah, there is a sense of like not everyone's family has parents who are like they're divorced. There's a sense of like feeling abandoned, feeling lonely and stuff. And Spielberg wanted to illustrate that in his earlier films, which he does very well in a very subtle way. He even talks about it. He's just like, yeah, the film Duel. Yeah, sure. It's about like a truck basically hunting down a guy in a car. And it's like, oh, that's a silly premise. But when you actually look at like he reflected on how he was bullied as a kid. It's like, okay, that actually,
right.
You know, in terms of visuals, that's a very clever thing. And hearing other directors talk about him is also funny too. Like, I always liked when Lucas was like, yeah, I saw his short film Amblin, and I was like, okay, it's whatever.
That's a good Lucas.
and then I saw Duel, and I was like, Francis, you gotta watch this film. It's amazing. This guy's got something.
Yeah, I love the part in the doc where he's like talking about how he had Indiana Jones and he just like throws it at him.
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy.
Well, it's crazy because like it was when he directed 1941. Spielberg was like, I wanted to do a comedy because I was like, I love comedies.
Yeah.
And then when I did it, everyone hated it.
Yeah, and up until that time, his trajectory is only like this. Every film hits, every film makes money, every film's good.
Yeah, and then so when he has his first dud, it's like, shit, what do I do next? And that's when Lucas was like, let's do Raiders. And he's like, okay, let's do Raiders, but it was one of those moments where it's like, okay, but you have to be on budget. All right. I've known how you work, Spielberg. You've always been on over budget. You were over budget with Jaws. You were over budget with 1940. You cannot do it.
It was really cool to hear Lucas say like he shopped it around and studios didn't want to make it with Spielberg, considering the hits that he had. But it was just a budget thing. And some studios even went as far as to say, we'll make this film, but not with Spielberg as a director, which is insane.
It's insane, but also, like, I guess looking at the climate at the time, because Kubrick had a similar thing where people were like, yeah, Kubrick's good, but, like, motherfucker shoots for, like, 2 years, man. I don't know. We don't have that kind of money on us, man. I mean, like, they're looking at their pockets as, like, well, I don't, but, no, it did pay off, though. Spielberg, like many of the directors talked about, was, like, he was so passionate with his work that it just so happened that what he was passionate about, the audience was, too. Hence why his films made millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
It wasn't like De Palma where he was inspired by Hitchcock and people didn't make as much money. Versus Spielberg's like, okay, let me take something as personal as love, family, relationships like that, and connecting with people, and make E.T.
Yeah, he knows how to deal with these like universal themes.
Yeah.
And which is why he's the king of blockbusters, because his movies appeal to so many people, which doesn't mean that he doesn't have range, because he does. He has a ton of range in his career. I mean, I look here at his IMDb credits, directing credits alone, he's got 58.
Yeah.
Jesus fucking Christ.
58 films.
58 films.
Let's be honest, Nathan. Do you see, like, not to go too much into it, but, like, what are the chances of, like, making 58 films directing, man? Like, that's so much. Kubrick. How many did Kubrick make? 10?
Yeah, like that's
10 or 11.
Yeah,
it's hard.
And even guys like Tarantino, they only want to make 10. Like that's the average of a good director. Like if a director has 10 good films, that's like amazing accomplishment.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
You put a lot of energy and a lot of sweat and tears into these films, and it's just like, how do I make 58 of these? And
it's
out of the 58, I would say like the ones that are good, like it's a good ratio.
Yes, 100%. There's personal ones in between, but there's always, if you want to look at Spielberg's careers by decades, there's always good ones in every single decade.
Yeah, I do agree on that. I'm just thinking of like the doc covers a lot, and I wish it covered more on specific things versus others. Like the one thing I wish they fleshed out a little bit more is the critics versus Spielberg during early to mid 80s when they were like, oh, he's getting a little too sentimental. There comes off a sense of pretentiousness when a critic says that, where it's just like, why is it always a happy ending? Why is it always this and that? And Spielberg's like, well, because like I want to do that. And I guess there was a point where Spielberg was criticized for not being a serious filmmaker.
Yeah, I think that was just a reflection of what his peers were making in the time, right?
Yeah. Like, I guess compared to Coppola and Scorsese.
Yeah, so his peers are making the best gangster films of all time.
Yeah.
And yeah, Spielberg is still making classic films, but he's making films like E.T., he's making films like Indiana Jones. And there are these different kind of blockbusters with a more wide appeal.
Yeah, which is why it transitioned pretty well with the movie The Color Purple that he directed, which is, I would say, is a very distinct time for Spielberg, because it was basically him
85.
trying to figure out his serious tone versus what he wanted to do. And he even says in the doc, he's like, if I made that 10 years later, I would have done a lot of things differently. And I guess it was the sense of not trying to be Oscar baity, but trying to understand the material and not going for that happy ending. And I think people criticized him with Empire of the Sun as well, given the subject matter of both stories.
I've actually seen Empire of the Sun. It's really cool to see fucking Christian Bale as a kid, and not only just see Christian Bale as a kid give a fucking Christian Bale performance.
Yeah.
That's a serious Christian Bale performance. And he's so young, and you're like, yeah, this guy, you see that he's going to be a star from that movie. You really do. You see that he had it in him really early. I really like Empire of the Sun. It has this like really, it's not this big blockbuster movie. It's a really personal story, But it works. It works really well. There's great characters in it.
Yeah, and I feel like those films he directed, like a lot of the critics critiqued them a lot, but I feel like they needed to be made for Spielberg because it taught him not only how to handle different stories, but to lead up to, in my opinion, his most personal story, Schindler's List.
Yeah.
I feel like if he didn't direct The Color Purple or Empire of the Sun,
You're right. You see the progression in this guy's life. When I'm looking here, a list of the filmography in order. You see, 85 he does Color Purple, 87's Empire of the Sun, and
Yeah.
and he's still doing an indie in between
Yeah,
there.
Last Crusade.
You know what I mean? And he's doing big movies like Hook, whatever. Like,
yeah.
but he's developing that in between. He's developing this personal filmmaking style that I think it peaks at Schindler's List. Really shows that
Absolutely.
he's come into his own and he can make more than just blockbusters.
Another thing I noticed too, which they cover as well in the doc. Another thing that I wish they covered a little bit more on is his patriotism. He talks about how he's very much patriot. Like I could see that. Tom Hanks in these films, Saving Private Ryan's one of them. Was he in The Post? Yeah, he was in The Post. He was in Bridge of Spies. A lot of these films are very much like American, like.
They feel like American stories.
Yeah,
These are real American stories.
But you didn't get that from the 70s and 80s from Spielberg. I feel like it was more of the late 90s that you got that post Schindler's List that you really saw Spielberg go for that direction. And it worked.
Yeah.
It worked very well. Band of Brothers, man. Like that's a thing that him and Tom Hanks worked on. And like I haven't seen the whole show, but it gives off that vibe of like, handling it pretty well, all things considered. And it's not like he isn't political because he did direct Munich.
Yeah.
Which is a very like intense subject matter to handle. I remember reading that premise. I'm like, wait, Spielberg directed this?
What a fucking unique filmography this guy has. Sometimes I scratch my head looking at this list sometimes and I'm like, he did that? Like, I didn't even know. Like, he's just been working. Like, it's unbelievable all the genres he's touched and all the different tones that he's tried.
Yeah. I know neither of us have seen all of his films.
No, not
but
even close.
I do want to cover one ground thing and see where we stand on it. What is your least favorite Steven Spielberg film?
My least favorite that I've seen.
Because I have mine.
You have yours? Can you say yours while I look through this?
It's a recent one. It's Ready Player One. I don't fucking get. It's such a shit film. You know why? Because the book it was based on is not a good book either. It's basically like, what if properties were like all together in the video game world? And it's just like, I get it why Spielberg did it because a lot of the stuff he worked on, he helped a lot of creators and stuff. So it's like, oh, let's bring it all together. But it seems so glossy, and there's very few scenes that feel like they were directed by Spielberg. Because a lot of it is just the CGI sequence.
It's a CGI fest, right?
Yeah, kind of sad to see that. But
I don't know what I'm gonna say here. That I've seen my least favorite.
Least favorite. I know it's a tough one.
It is a tough one because I feel like the ones I've seen are mostly the the big blockbuster ones.
Right.
Can I say Hook?
Don't say Hook. Hey, yo, one thing about this doc that I was a little bit cheesed at is they didn't mention Hook once. You want to know why? Because Spielberg hates it.
Yeah.
He hates it. I'm like, what? Why do you hate it? I read the interview where it's just like, I would have done a lot of things differently with Hook. I would have not used matte paintings. I would have used CGI. I was like, no, you wouldn't.
What's the critical reviews of
It's
Hook?
shit. They gave
really
it a
bad
shit rating.
Yeah.
It's like what?
IMDb 6.8 out of 10, 29% Rotten
29% for Hook, guys. Bro, you gave Crystal Skull a higher rating.
It's a fucking cool cast.
You gave Kingdom of the Crystal Skull a higher rating. That is not Dustin Hoffman, Robin Williams.
Yeah, it's a fucking great cast.
It's amazing.
Oh, and then you know what? I've seen Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, so there it is right there. There it is right there. That's definitely
that film's not going to be as good as the others when the behind the scenes Spielberg starts off with, yeah, I'm done with the series. I'm done. It was great. And then George was like, no, we got to keep on going. I was like, all right, fine.
Yeah.
It's like you should not be making a film with that attitude.
The all right, fine attitude. Films are so hard to make, and you have to devote so much time and effort and just jump through so many hoops that it's like, if your attitude is just all right, fine, it's going to be bad.
And the film, and nothing against Spielberg, like you said, he has matured from Last Crusade to Crystal Skull, and you can tell in many ways because you know you go to Crystal Skull and you go to Temple of Doom, like he's like beating the shit, he's killing people.
Yeah.
And in like Crystal Skull, it's like, oh, he's saving the monkeys.
I think,
Oh.
yeah.
Oh, that's so cute. He's saving the CGI monkeys. Look at Mutt Williams. He's Tarzan, and it's like I get it's goofy, but I don't know. I can live without seeing it again.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you. It's cool, yeah. It's cool that like Spielberg himself has almost gone through this character arc,
Yeah.
and it shows through his films. And I think that's a really cool thing when you can like kind of point out where he starts to change his approach, and he's just got a really cool filmography that I think tells his life story.
It's so cool seeing him as like the young guy of the 70s. So he's like with Scorsese, De Palma, Coppola,
Yeah,
Lucas.
and he's like sneaking onto the Universal set. And
Yeah.
like the legend is that he like takes an office in Universal with nobody knowing,
Which,
and nobody asks him any questions.
yeah, I'm sure that happened.
I'm sure that happened, but
Yeah.
do I believe that he was trying to get on the Universal set as much as
yeah.
he could, and he was sneaking around and looking at stuff that he shouldn't have looked at? Yeah, he probably was.
Yeah. Tarantino looked it through a phone book to like interview a director for like, yeah, and he actually got the interview when he was 19 because it was that easy to just contact someone. He's like, "Are you the director of Rolling Thunder?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Can I interview for a paper for my school?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure.
That's
Come by."
insane.
And he gave him a drink and shit. And he's like, "All right, I'll tell you whatever."
Different times
Yeah.
where everybody's kind of just like minding their own business,
Right.
and there's not like that much like security, so you could like do stuff like that.
Yeah, Spielberg can do that, but when I do it, I get arrested. Oh,
Yeah, no
I'm
fun.
told never to come back again.
No fucking fun.
Sure. See, he was on a Hitchcock set. That's hilarious. And they're like, "Who the fuck's this kid?
Yeah, he
Get him
got-
out of here!"
he got
Like,
kicked out of a
what's he
hit.
trying to do?
That's so funny, young Spielberg. Like, I would just love to see that, like,
Yeah.
him run around to these sets and stuff. Let's talk about Fablemans real quick. I haven't seen it. Unfortunately, I wanted to watch it before this episode really bad because I know it's like this culmination story, and it's
Yeah.
like his most personal, like, about his real experience, like falling in love with film and all that.
Yeah.
You had high praise of Fablemans when it came
Yes.
out. Tell me about it.
It's my favorite Spielberg film.
Wow.
It used to be Schindler's List, but this one, you know what? I could see myself watching this more because with Schindler's List, it's such a hard subject matter that ah man, I saw it once and I feel like that's more than enough for me. Fablemans, I could see that and be inspired by film every single time, even when I'm at my lowest point. I'm like, you know what? Nah. There's
Yeah.
always because if you've seen the Spielberg doc, he talks about his family a lot. He talks about how his mom was having an affair with another person.
Yes.
His dad was going through a lot of work, related things here and there. His sisters were also going through it as well. Fablemans covers that. It's very much like the documentary turned into the movie about his life, which I really, really enjoyed. I feel like Paul Dano and Michelle Williams play Spielberg's parents very, very well, even though they're not technically Spielberg's.
Right.
They're called the Fablemans. But there is a lot of that in the movie, and it covers it very, very well, I would say. It isn't a happy ending, which I like. I love the final shot in the movie. I'm not going to spoil it, but
Yeah, don't spoil it.
there's a
'cause
lot
that's
of
one I'm gonna watch very soon. Yeah.
very emotional. Yeah, it's Spielberg's most personal film since Schindler's List, which, at his age, I think it's very nice of him to like do something this like deep cut. And yeah, it's just an overall good time. The movie when I was watching, I was just thinking of his other films while watching it, like Raiders and stuff like that, where it's like it has that like nice adventurous feeling while also it just being about a kid set in the 50s.
Yeah.
So I would highly recommend that. I haven't seen West Side Story. I haven't seen
I didn't check that out either.
Lincoln Warhorse. I'm not a huge fan of like the concept of those. Like, oh wow, Abraham Lincoln biopic.
Biopics, yeah. I mean,
Wow.
biopics are really.
I mean, it's Daniel Day-Lewis, so like
It's probably a crazy fucking performance. I
Yeah.
haven't seen it either. The clips I have seen of it, it looks like Daniel Day-Lewis is fucking killing it, like he always does.
Oh yeah,
But yeah, maybe eventually I'll check that one out.
yeah.
That's one I'll probably look at just for
I think,
Daniel
I
Day-Lewis.
think another underrated Spielberg film I just noticed was Adventures of Tintin. That was him handling.
I
motion
saw that
capture.
when I must have seen that in 2011 when I was
Yeah.
young.
That was a Peter Jackson Spielberg collab. They wanted to do Tintin, but the deal was Spielberg was like, "All right, I'll direct the first one, and Peter, you'll direct the sequel." It's been 12 years.
The ball's in Peter's court, eh?
Balls in Peter's court. He has not made one since. He's like, no, I'm gonna make a Beatles doc.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make a doc set in World War I. And Spielberg's like, dude, man, like, it's gonna be 20 years until you make this fucking movie. But it took a while for that film to get made too. So understandably, you know.
Can we do Spielberg's best film of every decade?
Sure, let's go. We're going 70s.
We start with 70s.
All right, what's yours?
It's Jaws.
Jaws.
It's Jaws. Jaws is such a fucking important movie.
A lot of people would go
should-
Close Encounters too.
I know people love Close Encounters. I just haven't seen it.
Oh, okay,
I really do want to see it, but Jaws is a really special movie.
that's good. Okay, 80s. This is gonna be a hot take for me, but
You got a hot take here?
what's yours? What's yours in the 80s?
I mean, Raiders is my favorite indie. I gotta go Raiders, but I know that you like
What?
Last Crusade.
Yeah, it's
more.
Last Crusade.
You like Last
Last
Crusade.
Crusade's the best one.
Yeah.
I say that because it to me it works so well.
Yeah.
Somebody even commented on like the flashbacks where it's like Indy as a kid, and it's just like, you know what's crazy? It's like in that whole scene you find out who Indy is, how he got the scar, how he's afraid of snakes, all that shit, how he gets his hat. It's like it's done so well that when you see like Solo, a Han Solo movie or whatever, when they do the same shit, it's so bad.
Yeah.
And that's because Spielberg actually knows how to handle a scene like that, as corny as it is. Because it is a corny scene. It's like, oh wow, he's he's fighting with the lion with the whip. You know,
Right.
it's like
yeah.
if any other director handled it, it would have been so much more corny.
That's the franchise, right? Like
Yeah.
Indiana Jones is supposed to be over the top and
Yeah.
corny. The original trilogy is good because it has these really clever and personable moments in between.
Right. I feel like, I don't know, the tone just worked so much better because it didn't take itself too seriously versus when Crystal Skull came out and rewatching it again, it's like, yeah, there are those goofy moments, but man, they cranked it to 11. I feel like you needed to have that balance of goofiness and also drama.
Yeah,
I just felt like the drama kind of faded away in the second half of that movie.
you're right.
So, I don't know. We're going into 90s, I guess.
We're going into 90s. This is a big decade for Steven Spielberg.
It's a transitional period for Spielberg, I would say.
Yeah, it
This-
really is.
This one.
I mean, Jurassic Park, Schindler's List, Saving Private Ryan, which I love.
Saving Private Ryan's really good. I think that was Vin Diesel's first big role.
Does Fast and Furious ever happen without Saving Private Ryan? Is Steven Spielberg responsible for Vin Diesel's career?
Yeah.
Did he create a monster? He probably did. Yeah.
What? I mean, okay, yeah. He also was executive producer for the Transformers films. What are you gonna do?
Right.
Like, he was responsible for a lot of films. He was responsible for Gremlins, Back to the Future.
Yeah, that's
He
crazy.
produced those films. He didn't direct them. A lot of people thought he did because his name was like bigger than the fucking directors on those.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing too that happened, right? Spielberg's name. I mean, we kind of mentioned that, like, we were talking about how like Spielberg's name is like that name, like, oh, if you want to make movies, oh, you want to be the next Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
And that's because his name was so big that
Yeah.
they were putting his name on shit that he kind of helped with.
He kind of helped with. It's like Gremlins was directed by Joe Dante, but it says Steven Spielberg presents Gremlins. It's like,
Which is crazy.
what? Steven Spielberg presents Back to the Future. No, it's a Robert Zemeckis film.
Yeah. and I mean, good directors in their own right. Like,
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
getting- it's crazy to me.
They have a good lineup too,
Yeah.
as filmmakers. So I get why they did it because, as they said, like post Jaws, it's like, dude, imagine if Jaws flopped.
Yeah.
That was the breaking point for a lot of people because they're like, all right, Steven, you're over budget. You said you were going to shoot this in 55 days. It's day 120.
Yeah.
We're going to kill you if this film flops and then it becomes the highest grossing film of all time. He's 29 years old.
Isn't that crazy?
Then
What's
they were,
going through his head at that time? That's crazy, man.
I don't think Steven Spielberg likes having breaks. Judging by not only his credits as a director, but credits on other things and just like his personal life, it's like this guy just wants to do like 9 things at the same time.
Yeah.
And he's completely fine with it.
I saw this fucking heartbreaking interview of his where they're asking him about future movies and future projects,
Yeah.
and he's just like, I'm just running out of time.
Yeah, Scorsese said the same thing too.
Yeah.
He brought up Kurosawa. And
Yeah.
It's at that point where I think Kurosawa late 70s. They were also in their late 70s.
I think that whole generation is just kind of like, they still have the passion to make movies, but
Yeah.
that fucking breaks my heart. Why can't Scorsese and Spielberg live forever?
How do you think they felt when, like, what was it, Lucas and Spielberg were giving the honorary award to Kurosawa on his, like, 85th, 86th birthday? It's
Yeah.
like, Kurosawa, he didn't have...
That's crazy.
And even in that interview, Kurosawa was like, I'm still learning a lot at that point. And Scorsese's like, now I really know how that feels at my age, where it's just like, I want to do more, but it's just like, you can only learn so much at a certain point, and then you hit a point.
What a special era. I mean,
Yeah.
we're really lucky that we caught the tail end of this era, like of these legendary 70s directors, and that a lot of them are still making great films.
The one thing I hope to see is younger directors, which I feel like we covered a lot on A24, like the Safdie brothers,
Yeah.
Ari Aster, Robert Eggers.
Yeah,
Greta
it's
Gerwig.
not like only good directors were in the 70s
Yeah.
and now they're dying off.
No,
Like, there's
yeah.
still fantastic directors.
Yeah. I hope, like, when we get older, like, those directors become like the next round table.
Yeah, and we remember their first
Yeah.
films on A24, and we
Yeah.
remember when Good Time came out or
Yeah.
whatever. That's true. I hope
'Cause-
that we could feel like they feel.
Yeah, because although the style has changed, although the filmmaking has changed, the passion has not.
No, you're 100% right.
It's been like that since day one. So looking at Steven Spielberg's work and how many people he's helped make films and shows in and of itself is an amazing thing. And yeah, he's gonna be remembered as one of the greats. I mean, he is one of the
Special.
greats. So
Let's quickly we got off track, but let's quickly finish. 90s, what's your pick?
Oh, Schindler's List.
Schindler's List.
That's the best one. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to say Schindler's List too.
2000s. I'm curious what you think.
2000s? Fuck.
Yeah, man.
He's got some pretty good movies in the I'm going to say Catch Me If You Can. I like Catch Me If You Can.
I was gonna say Minority Report, but then I realized Catch Me If You Can came out the same decade, so I'm gonna pick that one too.
Not only the same year.
Bro, what the fuck?
2002. This motherfucker Spielberg just works, bro.
Imagine directing 2 films in the same year.
He's a workhorse, this guy.
What about the 2010s? What do you got for 2010s?
2010s. Man, to be honest, I haven't seen a lot of these, but I mean, Fabelmans is probably the best film. Oh, sorry, 2010s.
Yeah.
Fabelmans came out in 2022.
Fablemans
That's
was my
tricky.
favorite of the 2020s.
Of the
but
2020s.
yeah.
2010s is a weird one for Spielberg, huh?
I think Tintin. 'Cause
Tintin? Yeah, Tintin had some charm to it for sure. And to be fair, I haven't seen the rest of these, so I guess I have to say Tintin for now.
Fair enough.
And your next one is Fabelmans for the 2020s for
Fabelmans.
sure.
That is my favorite Spielberg film. It's his most personal. It hit me so hard. And yeah, I'm going to, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to buy it on Blu-ray.
You should.
Yeah, 4K Blu-ray. Woo!
We should. Maybe I'll watch it here with you then.
Yeah, of course.
That'd be great.
I
That'd be
mean,
great.
I'm going to try not to be a train wreck watching it, but yeah.
All right, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you for watching this episode of the Real Talk Podcast. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. We'll catch you in the next one. Take care. Brush your hair.
Peace out.
Peace.